Hey guys, Aaron Dorr here at the New York State Firearms Association. Session is underway here in Albany, but the main question you're asking us is where do things stand on the federal lawsuit challenging last year's tyrannical garbage that Kathy Hochul signed into law? It's confusing. Lots of judges are saying one thing. Those things are being stayed by higher court judges. Where do things stand, guys? We're going to break it all down for you. Watch this video, take action, share this content, hit the links, and stand with us in this fight. Hey guys, Aaron Dorr here at the New York State Firearms Association. Session is underway here in Albany, and we're seeing a lot of horrible bills filed to attack our gun rights. And we're going to break those bills down and address those bills in later videos and, of course, in our email program. If you're not getting those emails, go to our website and get signed up today to know what's happening in real time here in Albany. This video is going to be about the current legal challenges against the gun control bill that Kathy Hochul signed into law last year. We're being hammered with hundreds of calls a week right now in the office on where do things stand with the various lawsuits. What of last year's law is still in effect? What of it's been stayed? Where do things stand? What's going to happen next? So we're going to answer all those questions in this video. I just want to be clear, though. What we tell you is true today, but it may not be true tomorrow. So use extreme care when trying to decide how to conduct yourself in light of last year's horrific and unconstitutional gun control law. So for those who are watching perhaps from out of state, the background here is pretty straightforward. Last year in June, we had the major Bruen decision, which gutted 100+ years of tyranny on how New York State decides to issue concealed carry permits or pistol permits for New Yorkers. And now most lawmakers across the country stewed about it, were angry about it if they were gun grabbers, but realized that they had to play ball. Not Kathy Hochul. Kathy Hochul and the America-hating, New York State-hating, freedom-hating, demented tyrants here in Albany went, of course, the opposite direction. And so, while the Bruen decision said any future gun control laws must show how they comply with the historical precedent of the Second Amendment applied in the various states, Hochul went the opposite direction. And as we all know, she passed a massive gun control bill last year, which was the worst that we've seen in the state, but in the country to date. So the question you're asking us is, what is still in effect? So here's what we know right now. As everyone knows, there have been multiple 3, 4, even 5 different injunctions issued now by various federal court judges across the state. We had one in Buffalo very recently that dealt with the ban on church carry. We have seen others that deals with banning firearms in all commercial businesses as a blanket approach. There's been a various different injunctions applied by federal judges. And what an injunction means, just to be very clear, is that law enforcement may not enforce the gun control bill that Kathy Hochul signed. That's what the injunction does. Sometimes, in most cases, they injunct specific portions of the law. That's what we've seen here so far. However, each time that happens, Tish James, on behalf of the Attorney General, on behalf of the governor, goes before the Second Circuit, and she asks for what's called a stay. And the circuit court, unfortunately, so far, has issued a stay on every injunction that's come down from the federal judges. And the stay simply means that they're going to stay or put a pause on the injunction. So a lower court judge issues the injunction. The next level up, the Second Circuit, has said, we see the injunction, but we're going to put a stay or a pause on that. And law enforcement is still free and still required to enforce this current gun law here in New York State. So lower courts injuncted it. The next level up has put a pause on those injunctions. It's been frustrating. It's been going back and forth for months now. That's where that is. Now, on December 21st last year, the various parties who were engaged in these lawsuits appealed before SCOTUS, and they asked the Supreme Court for help in this matter. Now, the way this works is the various justices at the Supreme Court are responsible for a certain geographical section of the country. And so in this case, when some of the gun groups who have filed these lawsuits went to SCOTUS, they had to go and ask Sonia Sotomayor, not exactly a friend of gun owners, to say, hey, we have multiple injunctions by multiple judges. The Second Circuit is putting a stay on these. At the same time, they are not giving us our day in court to go and argue the merits on this entire situation. And so they have asked Sonia Sotomayor to intervene and say, we need a resolution. We need some clarity on this so that New Yorkers, both gun owners and law enforcement, know what the hell the law actually is and what we can and cannot do. So now Sonia Sotomayor told New York State on December 27, I believe the date was, that the state of New York, Tish James, the attorney general, needed to give a response to Sonia Sotomayor as to why the state keeps petitioning for these stays. That was accomplished December 27, and she ordered Tish James to give a response to her by January 3rd. Okay, so it's a lot of moving parts, but Sotomayor, not because she cares about gun rights, quite the contrary, but because this is a disastrous, confusing situation for New Yorkers and for gun owners, said we need to get some clarity on this. So in the last couple of days, Tish James has now gone back to SCOTUS, to the Supreme Court, to Sotomayor, and said, yeah, I want clarity on this as well, because she is a brutal dictator and she wants to put her thumbs down on gun owners and she wants to persecute and tyrannize all of us. And she wants these injunctions to be disposed of. So right now, both parties in this situation, those that are supporting freedom and those who are brutal dictators, are both asking SCOTUS to intervene. This is an amazing position that we find ourselves in. Now, put a pin in this and mentally, map us right here for a moment. There's other elements to this. At the same time this is all going on, the underlying lawsuits are due to have their merit arguments submitted to the Second Circuit by January 9. When you're watching this, we may have already gone past that date. That means that the state needs to give their response to the initial lawsuits filed against this by January 9. When the state gives their merits arguments to the court, then the initial parties have 30 days to respond to that and give their response. So while we have all of this chaos with the injunctions and the stays and the Supreme Court over here, the initial lawsuits are still making their way through the process at the same time. I know it's confusing. That's where things are. So right now, we have two dueling tracks. There's the initial lawsuits being argued on their merits before the Second Circuit, and now we have SCOTUS getting involved. And, it's not a big surprise, right? If you're Clarence Thomas and you're the rest of the conservatives who gave this landmark ruling just 6 months ago, I'd say you're pretty pissed watching Kathy Hochul, this demented little tyrant, trample all over this decision. And the law that they passed last year totally violates the Second Amendment, violates our personal freedom as human beings, and it blatantly is a giant FU to the Bruin decision from last year. So if you're the Supreme Court right now, this kind of response, that's not going to go over very well. So again, we've got these two tracks. We have the original case at the Second Circuit, and now we have SCOTUS getting involved. Both parties have to give a response to Sonia Sotomayor in the very near future on the stays that have been issued here in New York State. Now, we're in kind of uncharted territory. So what I've told you so far is all fact-based, date-based, based on the docket and what our lawyers are telling us on a daily update here at our office. What we don't know specifically going forward is what exactly happens next. So Slate.com, a radical leftist news blog at the national level, ran a big article just a couple of days ago, and Slate is confessing the Democrats and the gun grabbers' worst fears, and that is that this disastrous situation, the way that Hochul and Tish James have addressed this, is such a mess, and it's so out of control that SCOTUS might jump into this case far sooner than normal. As everyone knows, it normally takes, it could be a year, it could be 18 months, it could be even longer in most cases for SCOTUS to take up an appeal that comes to before their court. But this is, again, such a mess, and the law is such a direct negative response, that gigantic FU, like I mentioned, back to SCOTUS, that we might see the Supreme Court weigh on this much sooner. That was the whole conclusion of Slate.com's article, it was basically, oh my goodness, what have we done? We are giving a chance to the Supreme Court to issue another pro-gun decision right upon the heels of last year's Bruin decision. So this is speculation. We don't know for sure if it's going to happen. We don't know for sure when it's going to happen if it does happen. But there is a very real chance that the overreaction from Kathy Hochul and the radical left here in Albany may wind up where the Supreme Court comes back in here much, much sooner than normal and puts a real smackdown on last year's gun control law. So if there's anything good in all of this, it's that Kathy Hochul's demented hatred of freedom is so much that she has overplayed her hand so far that the Supreme Court might come back and beat her down very, very quickly. That's where things stand right now today. But I want to be clear. All of the injunctions that have currently been filed by the various federal court judges have been stayed. And that means that the current law in its current format is still being enforced, or at least it could be enforced across the state. Now, a lot of law enforcement agencies, county sheriffs, local law enforcement is saying, we're not going to enforce any of this crap or the biggest portions of it anyway, because, well, first of all, they think it's unconstitutional. And secondly, they don't want to walk into a lawsuit themselves. That's a smart approach for local law enforcement. But again, the law enforcement community is able right now to enforce this. So use extreme caution in this process. If this matter goes to SCOTUS, you can bet the New York State Firearms Association will be right there with our briefings, our amicus briefings, to make sure SCOTUS hears from our members directly. As we are doing the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, we will be making sure that the justices hear directly from you guys, from our members. So thank you so much for all of your support to date. We're going to have a link beneath the video. Make a donation. Help us win this fight in court. The backdrop here is being felt in Albany because these people want to push incredibly insane, unconstitutional gun control bills, mental health requirements as a condition of buying a firearm. They want to have longer waiting periods, civil liability insurance requirements as a condition of applying for a pistol permit. The list goes on and on and on. But if we score a victory in court, whether Second Circuit or SCOTUS, it will do an awful lot to put the brakes on what's happening right now here in Albany. So, guys, we're going to have more videos, more emails, more updates on the individual bills being filed here in Albany. But in the meantime, this is where things stand on the fight to stop last year's gun control bill in court. Thank you guys for your support. As always, hit that link below. Get involved, become a member, donate today to our legal funds. We'll keep you guys informed. Take care.